I'm on every single one of their lists. And so far, I guess I've been a little bit lucky, but that maybe doesn't last very long. I'm number one on the kill list for Iran. They're lovely people. I'm number one, so I don't know.
So President Trump insinuating all week that Iran is trying to kill him, and for good reason. The Iranians rolled out "Kill Trump" banners at the dead Ayatollah's funeral. And according to the Wall Street Journal, Israel shared new intelligence with the U.S. that pointed to a fresh Iranian plan to assassinate President Trump. The president even telling the New York Post that he has, quote unquote, left instructions should Iran assassinate him. Bomb them at levels never seen before. But this one Democrat suggests Israel is ginning the whole thing up to mess with Trump's mind.
It's also easy to see that Israel would want to sort of buck up Trump, make him more willing to take on Iran more strongly. Netanyahu has been, pushing for that tougher stance, a more hawkish approach to Iran for quite some time. Now, crucially, without any clear plan for how that's going to turn into some sort of success in terms of fundamentally breaking the Iranian regime. But Israel certainly has that interest. So it's hard to know. It's hard to know exactly what that intel is.
I get it now. It's all very clear. Joey, we have 17 intelligence agencies. We have tens of thousands of people working on it, but they can't actually corroborate something that the Israelis tell Donald Trump over the phone. Am I getting that right?
That's what people are alleging. Listen, I would not. I would understand if Israel's like, hey, we've got this sitting over here. Let's make sure he remembers this. Let's make sure he knows this. Maybe it's something that's not as much of a revelation as it is an ongoing piece of intelligence. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at that. I mean, Israel does have a self-interest here of like, hey, let's get back at it. And I don't necessarily blame them for it. It's our president's job to see through that if it's not in our best interest and to go along with it if it is. It's just, I love the fact that he goes, I've left instructions. If anything happens, just bomb the hell out of them. Like, I mean, that's what I would message as well. I would want them to hear me say that. Listen, by the way, if anything happens to me, even if it isn't your fault, you're getting bombed to smithereens. I mean, that's a part of his bombastic posturing that has at times worked very well for us. And then because there's also this like, well, it might actually be true. That might actually be exactly what's happening.
Well, look, we call it that. And the sort of highfalutin intel people call it strategic ambiguity.
There you go.
Right? But it's the same damn thing, which is we got to worry about this guy because he's capable of anything. Now, you work for him. And do you think it's a good idea to personally put him at the center of a target?
Yeah, President Trump knows what he's doing. And it's funny because I know you remember this, Paul. Right after President Trump won, there were folks arrested, attempted Iranian assassins who wanted to take out President Trump. And why did they want to do it? Because he took out Soleimani. That was a huge deal. And in fact, in the indictment, it says that Iran paused the plan to kill Trump until after the election because Iran assessed that Trump would lose the election and it would be easier to assassinate him. Well, you know what they say? It's FAFO. What is it? F around, find out.
What's that stand for?
What's that stand
for? FAFO?
I saw it in a porta potty.
You almost had the first word there.
So F around, find out. I won't say the word. And they did find out because Soleimani is now dead. But when you put this juxtaposed right against the story that the Mayor Mamdani's Office of International Affairs person was about to meet with Iran, who in turn had a plan to assassinate the president, it is outrageous that this is where we stand, that the mayor of New York City said he didn't know she was going to meet with the Iranians.
Oh, she got a talking to, and I think a lesson in federalism, because they stood that down, because you can't do that as a local official, interfere in American foreign policy. Speaking of American foreign policy, Kat, I got to come to you. You and I have shared a lot of opinions relative to this whole caper in Iran, but can we ignore a nation that says things like that and practically has debt to America on their money as they pursue a nuclear weapon?
Well, first of all, I wanted to point out that there was this question over whether or not this intel from Israel was legit or not. I thought it was interesting that President Trump himself denied that Israel had any new intel. He came out, he said, no, Israel came up with nothing, no. Then he said, no, I've been number one for a long time. And then he said, and it's the way life is, you know? Which, for him, it certainly is the way life is. Look, I don't think it's this mind-blowing thing to think that this regime wants to kill American leaders. I don't think that is a new thing by any means. I think that the only questions that people have had along the way is, okay, they have these desires. However, what can we do to involve ourselves, and is there's a certain cost benefit of money and potential American lives, and the risk of escalation, and once you get involved, more involvement seems to beget further involvement, and at what point is it enough? And those are the questions you're asking. To me, there is no question whether what these people's opinion of our country is. There's absolutely no question there, regardless of this. So I think that you can have concerns, but you got to, of course, keep hoping for the best. For the safety of all of our soldiers in the Middle East.
Yeah, this is one. Foreign policy is often described as choosing the least bad option, right? And this certainly looks that way. And let's recognize something else. When we got the meeting of the Ayatollahs and with the bombs that we got, the Israelis gave us that information. This is out there. It was through SIGINT, signal intelligence, but we were able to verify it through a person, a close source, who I suspect is still there. Greg, take us out. What do you got?
Well, I agree with Kat. It's like this isn't really news that Iran is putting a hit out on Trump. I mean, how is that new? Next thing you're going to tell me that Jesse's in Turkey getting a hair transplant. But I guess it tells you how dangerous Trump is to our adversaries, which is how it should be. Our adversaries should want him dead. I find that refreshing. They never would have targeted Joe Biden or Kamala Harris because they realize they're more harmful to the United States when they're alive. Keep them healthy. They wish Joe Biden was healthier. Our enemies love Joe Biden. He reminds me of when we used to sneak into a movie theater when we were kids. We always did it when the old guy with the bad eyesight was working. That's exactly how our adversaries looked at Joe Biden. Now's the time. Now's the time. But I'm less concerned with international assassins than the people that are homegrown, because they seem to be the most effective because they're hard to categorized. They're hard to ferret out. You have these delusional depressives amped up on the media's existential fear-mongering who believe that heroism and meaning will come if they kill this threat to democracy. They'll become heroes. There's a guy in my neighborhood. I see him once a week. He openly, on his bike, I think he's a bike messenger, killed Trump on his shirt.
What?
Because he feels that he's emboldened. He can do that. He could do that. And I could see Iran weighing options and opportunities to go after him, but it's the crazies that the Dems and the media have spawned that are more likely to try it because they got nothing to lose.
So true.
I just want to say real quick, anyone dismissing this needs to understand they had Secretary Pete Hegseth's face with it. They had Marco Rubio. They had the entire cabinet out there with a target on their face. These are people that travel abroad that are a part of our government. And at the end of the day, 25 years ago, they flew planes into this city, into the Pentagon. They tried to fly one into the White House. It's a real threat, and it's something to be concerned about. And it's something our president, anyone going on TV going, I don't know if that's really true, to think to play down a threat against the life of a man who's already been shot. I mean, that's the politics we talk about. They get in the way of being human beings.
And you would think foreign adversaries have better tradecraft than some of these knuckleheads who have taken shots at Trump, who are domestic, that Greg is talking about.
Asymmetric warfare, too.
So, there you go. I mean, we can't lose sight of the fact that he's had a number of attempts on his life, and he's gotten very, very lucky.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.